And everyone, this is Andris coming to you live from the Baking Steel studio in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today, we are making pita bread. It's going to be epic. We're going to dial in a dough recipe, and then we're going to bake some pitas on our baking steel. I've got my oven preheating for the last hour or so at 450. In fact, I'm going to amp it up just a little bit to 500. I don't use the broiler for pita. I've never tried that. Actually, that might be a fun project. Preheating my steel for the last hour. I want it ripping hot for pita bread, which is a really fun bread to make on the steel. It's like puff magic. Anyway, today we're going to do the dough, then we're going to jump right into baking pita on the steel in the oven. Let's get right into this. We will get to it. We're going to make the dough first, then we'll get to some questions, and then we'll bake some off live here. Incredible. It's like going to be a moment. Take some notes. All right, here we go. Let me first, let's talk about flour, okay? Typically, pita bread, we make, this could be like an overnight dough. You can make it same day. I prefer a 24-hour ferment. So we could use both all-purpose or bread flour, really your preference. All-purpose is going to be a little bit softer, not as high a protein content. So just like think cookies and pies, use all-purpose flour. Breads, use a stronger protein. You could combine them too. You could do half bread, half all-purpose. You could add a little bit of spelt. You could add a little bit of wheat. You could really have fun with this recipe to add a little bit of flavor. If you're making pizza one night and you want to make pitas the next, put a little spelt flour in. There's different variations, all going to be amazing. And all going to be your recipe too, whatever combination you decide. But for today, we're going basic bread flour. I always recommend going organic because we want this flour to be as clean as possible. And that's what we're doing. All right. So let's look at the, I've got my flour pre-measured here. I have 500 grams, okay? Pre-measured. I'm going to literally add in 15 grams of salt right into my recipe. This has all been pre-measured. I do recommend using a scale for all of your ingredients. This recipe was designed for a scale, and then just whisk it around. This is so simple, but fun. And always, someone asked earlier, I'm always making dough and either leaving it in my fridge or just baking off breads or whatever it might be. I'm using active dry yeast. I'm using about 1 gram, which is pre-measured using a micro scale. I do recommend grabbing one of these micro scales. Oh, this is so annoying. My camera, sorry guys. I don't know why it keeps blurring out. I do recommend a micro scale. And what the micro scale does is it measures to the 1/100th of a gram, which gives us those micro amounts. If I tried to measure 1 gram on this scale, it's not going to be deadly accurate. It's going to give you, it has a bigger tolerance. So micro is the way to go for these. You can buy these this is a brand called Salter. I buy it on Amazon. They're like $20, $25. They're really easy. Might remember these from your college days, right? Those roommates that were measuring other things that might be now legal. Anyway, I whisked my my yeast around. And so I've got my flour, I have my salt and my yeast in. I have pre-measured the water. And I drink filtered water, so I cook with filtered water. That's really that simple for me. If I don't have filtered, I would buy water to filter, right? I just feel like that's what I drink. That's how we cook, just cleaner. This is going to be 65% hydration, meaning for every, your flour is your main ingredient. Anything else that we add is a percentage of flour. So in this case, this is 325 grams of water and 500 grams of flour, which equals 65%. And the reason we keep percentages, because we can scale now the recipe up or we can scale the recipe down, depending on how much we'd like to use. So for this, our pizza dough is typically 70%, mostly, unless it's like a New York style. This is going to be 65%, which means not as wet. That's a little easier to handle. So I pour my water in my bowl. You can see And now I do, before I do anything else, I'm gonna grab a spatula and just kind of move it around. Before I get my hands floured, I want to incorporate the water in the flour as much as I can. And then what I might do is I might take this and put it on my countertop, like so. I'm out of my dough containers. I gave my last couple of dough containers away. I don't have my baking steel dough containers. I have to order some, ironically, right? So anyway, take my batch of flour and we just kind of press in. Really, all I'm trying to do is get the dry clumps out. And notice how dry this dough is right now, right? Very dry. As I press, the water in the flour is going to hydrate this and it's going to become a little sticky. I do recommend one of these dough scrapers because I can kind of scrape underneath it and turn it. And if I'm new to this, I will put a timer on and do this for about 2 or 3 minutes. I'm pressing in pretty good. Like I'm pressing in pretty hard. I'm just getting the dry clumps out, and you can see, well, you can't see yet, but it's starting to get a little bit tacky. That means the water is starting to come in contact with the flour and hydrate all those grains. And that's when I know it's pretty close to being mixed enough or kneaded enough. Again, my purpose is to hydrate this and knock out all of those dry clumps. And that's about done. Just one big mass. You can scrape up by underneath here, just press it in. That's it. I will typically wash out the bowl that I started in or grab another one and then wash it out. And then take my bowl, my dough goes in, and I'm gonna let this, I'm gonna cover this with saran wrap, plastic wrap, and let it sit for about 24 hours-ish, right? Depends. Like today it's like noon, say. Tomorrow morning, this will have risen, maybe doubled in size. It'll have this aroma, this incredible aroma, like fresh bread. But I love making dough because it's just that aroma is just worth it by itself. Kind of like buying donuts, right? Buy donuts and you smell them, they smell amazing. Or pastries, fresh breads, all of the above. Cover this up. Tomorrow I will divide it up and just make just little dough balls with it. I don't have any, oh, actually, do I have a dough? I have a little ball here. I do have one little one. I was going to add this. This is a little secret too. I made some bread this morning. I had this little piece. It's like 50 grams of dough. And instead of throwing it away, I'm going to add it to this batch. Let's take this dough and add it right in. And I'll mix it in a little bit. And sometimes my extra is a little bit more than that, or sometimes it's not really less. I'll just mix that in, and now I've got some old dough in with my new dough. Instead of discarding it and throwing it away, just blend it, mix it into your new batch. And now I've got a little bit of old dough in my new dough, a little bit more flavor, which is awesome. And then after that rises, I'm going to divide it into like, let's see, 500, 800, probably about 8 equal portions, 6 to 8 equal portions, depends on what size, but I'm looking at these here, right? That's about a batch of dough. I divided up into 8 equal portions so I can roll those out and make my pita bread. So before we bake, let's get to some questions if you have any. Oh, and already asked. Richard has a great question. 24 hours in the refrigerator or leave it on the counter? So great question. I will like to ferment my dough, this here that we just mixed, room temperature. And to me, that's like in the summer. In fact, I usually leave here at night. I turn the AC down to like 75, 76 degrees because it's a little warmer. It's summer. I'm not sure if it ever hits that. So my AC kicking in when I'm not here. but that's room temperature to me, 70 to 75 degrees, right? Leave it at room temperature for the next, if it gets too hot, then maybe I do want to put it in the fridge. If I don't have AC, then I could put it in the fridge. That's just going to slow that fermentation process down, which is cool also. But like for the first 24 hours, I like to give it a quick boost, if you will. Do you let the dough balls rest for time? Francine, great question. I do. I'm not the same as pizza, but once I make my pita balls, I will let those sit for, in my case today, probably an hour and a half. I let them sit. I took my dough out of the fridge this morning. I kind of let my dough get to room temperature. Then I made my dough balls. So they're going to be nice and pliable, if you will. But with pita, we're going to roll it out. So not as crucial as pizza dough. If that makes sense. We're going to smash those air bubbles out. All right. Any other questions before we get into baking, you guys? I love the questions, so keep them coming. All right. So baking day. So let's fast forward. Today's Wednesday. Let's pretend it's Thursday. 24 hours later, okay? Our dough's been divided. We have our dough balls. Where are they? Here they are. Let's, I'm a flour up. I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm a flour up my station here. Just a little bit of flour. I'm going to take one of my dough balls out, coat it both ways. And now I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm doing this so it doesn't stick, so the flour, right? And then I'm going to grab like a rolling pin. First, I can kind of press it out a little bit. And I want those air bubbles out of this thing, right? And I keep picking it up, so I just don't want it to stick to my countertop. Those bubbles, I'm pressing them out. When it gets to be pretty good size, I'm gonna add a little bit more flour. A little dusting's all you need. A little dusting. Grab a rolling pin or something similar. In my case, I'm using a wine bottle. I don't drink anymore, so I just use it for a rolling pin. Here we go. I just kind of press it out. I don't want to go super thin. Make it like a disc, if you will, probably like 7 or 8 inches. I like to go about a little bit bigger than this, about a 1/4 inch. And it's okay to get those bubbles out, right? You can see the thickness of this. It's about a 1/4 of an inch. You can see that way, easier. Just keep pressing a little bit. When that gets to be round, like a piece of pita, we're good to go. Now what I'm going to do is grab my peel. We got one here. Oh, that's a good wheel. Sorry about the noise, guys. All right, I got my peel. I'm going to lightly dust it. Just place my piece of pita right on top, like that. You guys see me okay? All right, now I've got my oven ripping hot. It's 500 degrees. All I'm going to do is launch this thing onto my steel. I've got a little flour, as you can see, I can jiggle it a little bit back and forth. That's critical because I don't want this to get stuck. I'm just going to fire it away. And again, pretty good. It's a little bit thick on this edge. Like press it out just a little bit more. It looks good. I want to leave just enough so it puffs up. All right, I'm going to put this, change cameras here so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. I hope this camera stays with me. I don't know why it's fading out on me, but there's my oven. It's going to be a little shaky here for a second, guys. I'll try to get it as quick, smooth as I can. My oven here, right? Just launch it on. Just like that. I'm going to close my oven up. We can try to watch this live. And it's baking. Typically about 1 minute is what we're looking at for this thing to blow up. You can start to see a little bit. Like we need a drum roll or something, right? Still hot. It looks like nothing's happening, right? Those edges are starting to curl just a little bit. Curling. We lost the camera again. Shoot. Uh, go back here for a second, guys. I'm gonna just reset this. Sorry. Hopefully this works. Oh no. Oh, my camera's gone. There it is. You can see how it's starting to puff. Puff. Isn't that cool? It's a very cool moment, right? And boom. It's completely blown up now. Awesome. And that's about, I didn't time it, but I'm guessing that's about a minute. So typically what I'll do now is I'll open the oven up and I don't have my tongs. I'm literally just gonna flip it over really quick and cook the other side. Now the puff is gone. Obviously I just kind of exploded it, but I'm gonna bake the other side for another minute and we'll be done. I'm put the timer on so I don't forget. But that's the pita magic, right? Isn't that awesome? Wow, it worked. Get lucky sometimes, right? So that's literally the dough I made like 2 days ago, 100-gram dough balls. I got my steel ripping hot to 500 degrees. We rolled it out, not too thin, but we did get the air bubbles out and we baked it. We were patient. You saw it kind of explode, which was really fun. And then we bake it for another minute on the other side. And then that's our pita. It's that simple. And I'll just make, after class today, I've got like 7 or 8 more to make. And I'm just going to continue to bake those. I'll try to record them. It's kind of fun to watch them in a time lapse. You can do it so it's a little easier to watch than sitting there for a full minute. And really incredible. And by the way, now I've got all these pockets of joy to share with my family tonight. We can stuff it with breakfast foods. We can stuff it with, let me pull this out. You can see, still like a little blown up, right? It's cool. Got a little color, like the pita we're used to seeing in the stores, right? Very nice. These will deflate, and that's our pita magic. Super cool little pockets, guys. Super fun to make, easy, impress your guests. Baking steel, it's that heat that really helps make these things blast like that. So let's get to some more questions. What is the best way for this bulk for later? Ferment, portion, bake, freeze, heat. Rory, great question. What's the best way to do this in bulk for later? So I just mix my dough. If I'm going to make pita bread tomorrow, I will let this bulk overnight at room temperature. If I'm not going to bake it until Friday, I will take this bulk and put it into the fridge and remove it Friday morning, make my dough balls, etc. If that makes sense. If I'm going to freeze this dough, I would let it ferment overnight, make my dough balls, and then freeze them right away. I don't want them to proof. I like to freeze them as soon as I make the dough balls when those glutens are really nice and tight. That way, when it thaws, it starts to expand. I hope that makes sense. I love the live effort. No worries about the game, but thanks, Claudia. I don't know what's going on. I gotta look into that. We have to do a better job with the cameras. That's on me. But I don't know why all of a sudden it just like shuts itself off. Very aggravating. And I don't even think about it until I'm live in class. I need a tech person here. Any tech people? It'd be great. Can you make more than one at a time, Marlene? Yes, great question. I have done 3 at a time, and they're actually all blown up. You just want to make sure your oven's really hot and work fast. Because in other words, I don't want to leave my oven open too long because then I'm going to lose a lot of that heat. So if you have your 3, even on one big peel, our baking steel plus peel is nice for 3 because it can launch 3 at a time, if you will. Just work fast, but carefully. And yeah, you can do 3 at a time. They may not puff as well, but they will puff. I've done it. I've done 3. I think we got a picture of 6. We actually had 2 steels in the oven, and we launched, Craig and I, we did like 3 on each steel really fast, and we watched them, and they all blew up. It was pretty awesome. It's like maybe a Guinness Book of World Record type of moment. Okay, so Annie, great question. I'm glad you brought this one up. When I roll mine out, they bounce back. And what she's talking about is the dough is likely, I'm going to guess, probably, well, a little cold, or you just made your dough balls and the glutens didn't have enough time to relax. Typically, the dough is very elastic. So when I do that, we call it the final proof, meaning when I make my dough balls and the dough balls sit there for 2 or 3 hours, that's called the final proof. I think of the final proof like a yoga class. The longer that final proof, the more supple that dough is going to be. If I make my dough balls and try to roll them out 15 minutes later, the dough is still going to be very elastic and it's going to continue to snap back. If we wait a good hour, at least an hour or 2, you're going to see it to be more supple. Does that make any sense, Annie? Please respond in there if you can. The first few have color, but then they lose color after the baking steel cools down. Should the later ones be baked longer? Great question. 2 things come to mind, Ronald. Are you using a lot of flour? In fact, I want to show you inside my oven here. This is a good, I want to take a peek at my steel. I'm not even sure what it looks like. Let's take a peek. So inside, you can see my steel. I've got 2 steels in here, but I typically will open my oven up like this. I'm going to grab a rag and give it a quick Zamboni. I want it to be clean because couple reasons. One, that flour can burn on and burn into the dough that you're making, or 2, it can act as like a barrier. You're going to lose a micro amount of heat. So I like to keep my steel clean by using, I use these bar rags, and I beat the heck out of these things. You can see I use them. I literally go in and wipe my steel in between rounds of breads, pizzas, etc., because I want my steel to always be clean. That'll help with the browning. And then also, you can, I like to give my steel a minute or 2 or 3, depending on what I'm making, to bounce back in the temperature, especially for pizzas. If I'm trying to make really great pizza all night, let's say I'm making 3. I'm going to make my first pizza. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to close my oven up. I'm going to stretch and make my second pizza. That time is called 3 to 5 minutes. Well, that's allowing my baking steel to get back up to temperature. And that's pretty fast in 3 to 5 minutes. Then I would launch. If I just launched removed and launched in succession, that steel is going to lose a little bit of heat. So I'm very mindful of that. I want to always keep a good flow, but give it time to bounce back. And there's certain situations where that's not going to happen. I know if I'm feeding kids and they're all hungry and it's wild, I might sacrifice a little bit of the browning for the speed, but I typically will let my steel bounce back in between rounds. I hope that makes sense. Okay, good. So good question. They won't overproof. No, I would not be afraid of the dough overproofing when making pita bread. Even for pizza dough, it's 3 or 4 hours is a nice amount of time, but I've gone 7 or 8 hours. The dough is going to lose a little vitality because it has overproofed at that point. It's going to be a little bit too supple. It might not blow up as well, or the bubbles, it might not rise as well in the heat. But 3 or 4 hours, you're not going to really overproof that. I hope that makes sense and that helps. Thank you, Neil. My pleasure, man. Thank you. I'm super happy about that. Thanks, Neil. Does anybody else have any questions? Awesome, man. And I'm going to drop my email in here too, guys. Andris@bakingsteel.com. That's my personal email. I answer as many as I usually answer everybody. I will, if I forget, I didn't forget it on purpose, just email me again. I do get inundated sometimes and I can't keep up. It's a math issue, but I try the best. But literally, I love it when I get emails on questions about helping people. If you have any questions, please let me have them. That's great. Yeah, and the pita, phenomenal, right? Looks so good. Can't wait to dive in. Any difference in baking time when I have only one steel in the oven? Ah, great question. Nope, not at all. Claudia, for baking, nope. For the pita bread, I always have two steels in my oven. That's how I roll because I've got steel everywhere. I got one on top of my oven too. When I'm just making pita bread, one steel is all you need. And again, if I'm making pita, I might lower that steel to like the bottom rack just so I can have easy access, right? And it's supposed to the top. It might blow up too close to that broiler. So I keep it on the bottom shelf for us making pita. I hope that helps. That's a great question though, Claudia. Super cool. What about using whole wheat flour? Ah, will it puff up? Great question, Karen. Yes. So this goes back to earlier when I said I use bread flour today. Like this is just all bread flour. I would substitute in fact, I was trying to get some spelt today. I couldn't find any off. I usually get mine online, so I went to the market. They didn't have spelt. I was going to add, so we use 500 grams of flour. I was going to add 450 grams of bread flour and 50 grams of spelt flour, which would just give it a tiny hint of spelt earthiness into that dough, which I would love. Wheat would be the same thing. I would just add like 50 grams of wheat flour in. So it'd be 450 bread flour or 450 all-purpose flour and 50 grams of wheat. The only thing you need to be careful with wheat is not to overdo it, because that will alter the recipe because it absorbs water differently than bread flour. So, but for experimenting, like taking 50 grams of wheat and throwing it into this recipe would be phenomenal. Be a really good idea. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you, guys. Anybody else have any questions? We can let you rip and get out of here. And if you make pita, please tag it on Instagram or Facebook. Love to see your creations. And if you have any questions, please just reach out to me personally. I would love to help. You guys are amazing. Anybody else last minute questions? Drop them in there. You're welcome, Nula. I love your name. Amazing. Thank you, guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. I think at the end of the month, we're doing pizza again. We're going to do a fall pizza. It's going to be really fun. Cannot wait. Until then, you're great. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Leslie. Awesome, you guys. Peace out. Be safe. See you soon.